Good evening, dear students. Today we are going to discuss Act 2 of Ghosts by Henrik Ibsen. First, we will begin by mentioning the summary of this act, Act 2. In this act, the scene is the same as in Act 1. It is the same scene. But now it has stopped raining. Heavens has stopped raining. And instead we have a mist, ضباب. And a mist obscures the outside landscape. With dinner is served, Oswald goes out for a walk, and Regina becomes busy with the laundry. Meanwhile, Miss Alving and Manders continue their conversation, which has begun in Act 2 and in Act 1. She tells him how she managed to hush up, to silence, the scandal of Alving's misconduct by providing Joanna, of course, is Regina's mother, by providing Joanna with a handsome dowry. Of course, the dowry is the wedding gift. And having her respectably married off to Jacob Engstrand, the carpenter. Manders is shocked. When he hears this, he is so shocked that the carpenter, why is shocked? What is the reason of this shock? Because the carpenter lied to him by confessing of his light behavior. By confessing of his light, he called it like that. Okay, I quote, light behavior. Indeed, it is not light at all. His behavior, the carpenter's behavior in the past, wasn't light at all. It is so heavy. And here we can find the kind of what we call in English literature a verbal irony. Okay? So he is so confused, so shocked by that carpenter's confession, who lied to him by confessing of his light behavior. The carpenter confessed of his light behavior in the past. With Joanna, of course, that behavior was with Joanna, the deceased mother, and so deceived the pastor to perform the ceremony of marriage in the past. How could a man, he states, how could a man, for a paltry 70 pounds, for a worthless 70 pounds amount, okay, allow himself to be bound in marriage to a fallen woman? So he calls Joanna by this title. Okay, he describes her as being a fallen woman. Mrs. Alving points out that she was married to a fallen man. Okay? Again, we have a situational irony. Mrs. Alving points out to him that she herself was married to a fallen man as well. But Manders says that the two cases are as different as night and day. You can compare this to that. Yes, his hostess agrees, Mrs. Alving agrees to this opinion. There's a great difference. There was a great difference, but in the price, only in the price. Not the persons, okay? In the price paid. And she says, there's a great difference between a paltry 70 pounds paid to Joanna and a whole fortune paid to me, to Miss Alving. Besides, her family arranged the marriage, prepared the kind of marriage in the past. For she was in love at the time, Miss Alving, she was in love with someone else. Her family arranged that marriage and guided her or obliged her and forced her to marry that person, Mr. Alving. In response to her meaningful allusion, of course she means something when she said that to Mr. Manders, she means something. Manders weakly concludes, his situation is so weak at this moment, he weakly concludes that at least the match, that marriage in the past was made, as he says, and I quote, was made in complete conformity with law and order. Okay? Law and order. The society. Order in the society. The social restrictions, the social guidelines of the society. However, to Mrs. Alving, as she puts it, she says, I often think that law and order are at the bottom. Ms. Alving believed that law and order of the society are, both of them, are at the bottom. The reasons of all the misery in the world, law and order at the bottom of all the misery in the world, she means that they are the reasons, the real causes of all the misery in the whole world. She regrets her lifelong cowardice. At this moment, she feels regret at being a coward. Were she not such a coward in the name of law and order? Were she not a coward in the name, under the pretext, the umbrella of law and social order? She says that I would have told Oswald all I have told you from beginning to end, from A to Z. Manders point out that she taught her son to idealize his father, and so, as the mother, she mustn't smash his ideals. The ideal picture of his father, she mustn't smash that picture. But she asks him, and what about the truth? Pay attention to these words, very important. She asks him, what about the truth? She means the truth must be revealed. But he responds, what about his ideals? What about your son's ideals? Okay? And this answer, his answer, underlines, highlights Ibsen's basic equation or basic supposition that ideals equal lies. When she asks him, she wonders, what about the truth? The truth, she means, the truth must be revealed. He answers back, what about his ideals? Those ideas mustn't be broken, mustn't be taken down. Although Mrs. Alving wishes to quickly find the solution for Regina before Oswald gets her in trouble, as you know from the first act, she regrets her cowardice. To prevent more deceit, more lies, she should rather encourage the marriage of Oswald and Regina. Can you imagine that? To prevent more lies, she should rather encourage that illegitimate unlawful, okay, kind of marriage or any other arrangement. Manders, of course, is shocked. Is so shocked that she can suggest a relationship based on incest. How could she encourage such a relationship of incest? طبعا كلمة incest هي سفاح. But by being a coward, she explains to him that by being a coward herself in the past, she succumbs to ghosts. And following is one of the most, if not already the most important quotation of all, the most important quotation of the entire play is uttered by that woman, Miss Alving. She says, I am frightened and timid. Timid means shy. Because I am obsessed by the presence of ghosts. Ghosts still haunt me. Ghosts still haunt me. By the presence of ghosts that I never get rid of. I can't discard these ghosts. When I heard Regina and Oswald in the kitchen the previous act, it was just like seeing ghosts before my eyes once more. Okay? These ghosts didn't die with the death of her husband, her late husband. No, they are still present. I am half inclined, she continues to say, that I am half inclined to think we are all ghosts. We are all haunted, she means. Mr. Manders, it is not only what we have inherited from our fathers and mothers, our ancestors. No, these are not the only ghosts we have. These are not the only ghosts that exist again in us, but all sorts of old dead ideas and all kinds of old dead beliefs and things of that kind. So Miss Alving's definition of ghosts are dead ideas and all dead beliefs of the society, worn out traditional beliefs of the society. Those are the ghosts of the society. They are not actually alive in us, but they are dormant, you know. These ghosts are dormant, inactive, sleeping, all the same. And we can never be rid of them, okay? Unless there is, for example, a kind of social revolution in the Norwegian society at the time. Whenever I take up, of course, that kind of revolution may be more revolutionary regarding the intellectuality of the people, okay? An intellectual revolution. Whenever I take up a newspaper, and she goes on to continue, whenever I take up a newspaper, I read it, I see ghosts creeping between the lines, sneaking between the lines, coming to your mind, trying to attack your mind, trying to, to limit, to restrict any new ideas that can get easily into your head or mind. There must be ghosts all over the world, not only in the Norwegian society, no, all over the world. There must be countless as the grains of the sands, حبات الرمل. They are countless as the grains of the sands, it seems to me, she says, it seems to me. And we are so miserably afraid of the light, okay? We are so miserably afraid of the light. Here the light symbolizes change. We are afraid of the change that might happen to us if we try to enlighten us with something different away from those old beliefs and traditions. All of us, she says. Manders blamed these strange ideas on her reading this subversive, free-thinking literature. Okay? The blame is to be laid on these subversive, free-thinking literature. Of course, the word subversive means revolutionary. Okay? Ideas. Okay? That are transported or conveyed through literature, literary works of art. But she says to him that her ideas come from suffering, what Manders himself praised as being right and just, what my whole soul revolted against, as it would against anything abominable. Okay? She accuses him that these ideas, okay, are the result, those of course worn out ideas, are the result of the suffering, okay? The suffering that came from what Manders himself described as being right, okay? And those ideas she has throughout her life revolted against. He asks her, you think it was wrong for me to entreat you, to ask you to do something, to entreat you as a wife to return to your lawful husband? Was that my fault? To beg you go back to your husband? Lawful, he mentioned that word. Lawful husband. When you came to me half distracted and crying, in the past he described, it's a kind of retrospection. When you came to me half distracted and crying, here I am, take me. She answers him, I think it was. Manders declares he can go, no longer allowing a young girl to remain in her house. He refers to Regina. He can't allow the presence of Regina in the house anymore. Regina must go home to her father's care. Okay? And here again we find a kind of irony. It is the father who needs care, not the daughter. At this moment, there is a knock at the door. Engstrand enters, respectfully requesting the Reverend, the pastor, to lead, as he says, all of us who have worked so honestly together on the orphanage building in some concluding prayers. He comes to the home of Mrs. Alving to ask the pastor to come to the orphanage to deliver some prayers. After Manders begins questioning Engstrand about his marriage and other matters of the past, Manders offers the carpenter a chance to explain what must lie so heavy. These are his words. What must lie so heavy on his conscience and shoulders. So heavy on his conscience. The old man, Engstrand, makes a fine show. The old man makes a good show of piousness. He pretends to be a pious man, of piousness and sensitive feelings. Okay? As he tells his story to Manders. He pretends to be a pious man with sensitive feelings when he retells the story of the past, the story of himself and Joanna to Mr. Manders. Manders, upon hearing that sensitive story of the past, okay, with tears in his eyes, he offers Engstrand a strong handshake, okay, It's a handshake of faith and friendship, a symbol of faith. He believed, he bought what he said, he bought what Engstrand had just said. Okay. The pastor, turning to his hostess, to Mrs. Alving, he asks if she doesn't think that we must, he himself and Miss Alving, because he believed her story about Engstrand in the past, but now he discovered the truth. What he believes now to be the truth, but it is not. Okay. He tells her that we must be exceedingly careful before condemning our fellow men. He blames her for condemning that man of that story in the past. But she answers him, what I think is that you are, okay, you are and will always remain a big baby. Mr. Manders and Mrs. Alving's eyes is a big baby. It means it's a symbol, it's very symbolic. He is easily deceived despite his age and position as a pastor in the society. A big baby means he can be easily deceived despite his age, his experiences, wide range experiences, and position as a clerk or a pastor in the society. Mr. Manders answers back, but before that, I remember, when she tells him that you are a big baby, she says, I should like to give you a big hug. Miss Alving would like to give Mr. Manders a big hug. Okay? It's very symbolic, Please write this down. She wants to give him some of her experience. The experience she gained from her life, her previous life, or through reading books. Very, very symbolic. She wants to give him a hug as a help, give him a hand, give him some of her experience, the experience she gained from her previous life when she left her husband in the past, and the experience she gained from reading literary works. Hurriedly, the pastor goes out to conduct the prayer meeting at the orphanage. Discovering that Oswald is present in the dining room, Miss Alving sits down with him for a chat, a mother to son chat. Her son complains that, and this is very important, besides being constantly tired, he feels a constant tiredness, sickness. Okay? The lack of sunshine, he tells her that the lack of sunshine in this place prevents him from painting. And this again is very symbolic. Sunshine here refers to truth, truthfulness, al-haqiqah. Okay? The absence of sunshine over truth prevents him from painting. Okay? Prevents him from proceeding with his normal life. This is no ordinary fatigue. It is no ordinary weariness, sickness. It is not ordinary. He tells his mother, but it's part of his sickness. A Paris doctor diagnosed for him. A Paris doctor, when he was in Paris, he was diagnosed as having a serious disease. He was told he had this, as he says, canker of disease. The word canker means either an evil disease, a blight, or a cancer disease. this disease, okay, since his birth, as he says, as he tells his mother, a canker of disease since my birth. So it is inherited, it is in the blood from his father. Oswald continues that the old cynic said, the doctor who diagnosed him said that the sins of the fathers are visited on the children, are inherited by the children. Okay? Children do not only inherit the physical features, the DNA of their fathers, but their morals as well. To prove that his father lived, to prove to the doctor, of course, in Paris, that his father lived a dutiful, a virtuous life, a prudent life. The boy, at the time, of course, he was a boy. The boy read some of his mother's letters to the doctor. These letters contained, good words about Mr. Alving. Okay? At the time, she didn't want to defame the reputation of his father. Okay? As Mrs. Alving softly repeats, she repeated after him, the sins of the fathers. Okay. Oswald confesses of a single instance of imprudence. He committed something in Paris. He didn't tell what it is. Instance of imprudence that must have infected him of a disease. It is not infected from my father. No, I committed something immoral while in Paris, and that was, of course, the result. But it is not the truth. He despairs, gets very despaired, disappointed that he, as he described it, that he throws, okay, that he cast away, that he discarded his life, in return for a brief pleasure, okay, life pleasure, and asks his mother, at this moment, he asks his mother for something to drink, to drown, as he puts it, to drown these galling thoughts, these bothering, these troubling thoughts, to put them down, to end these pains, these thoughtful pains. He wants to drink something. He wants alcohol, just like the father. Regina brings a lamp, and the lamp here is very simple. At this moment, she brings a lamp. Why? Of course, she fetches, in addition, she fetches a champagne to drink, but she fetches a lamp. Why? A lamp is a symbol of light, to clear away the mist, to enable this young man, okay, to help him out of his misery, to bring him some light in this mist, this kind of deceit, okay, this life built on deceit and on lies. Oswald tells his mother that, and I quote, I can't go on bearing this agony of mind alone, this intellectual agony. Okay. Oswald tells his mother he would like to take Regina with him, to leave the house, to leave home with Regina, because she has, this is very important, why does he want to take Regina with him? Because she has the joy of life in her, the joy of life joyness, okay, in her, the joy of life in her. And so Regina will be his savior, his salvation. His mother repeated that phrase, the joy of life. Okay? she exclaims, the joy of life with a start. She says that with a start, with a shock. Is there salvation that? Is this your salvation? In that? In the life of, is there salvation that? In the life of wastefulness and imprudence? She means in the life of wastefulness and imprudence, is this your salvation? Regina brings, at this moment, Regina brings more wine. Because, because his mental agonies are increasing. Okay? And Oswald asks her to fetch a glass for herself, to join him in drinking. Regina and Oswald. At her mistress' nod, Mrs. Alving nods in assent. She accepted to share him the drinking. The girl obeys and takes a seat at the table and begins drinking with Oswald. Mrs. Alving wants to know more about the joy of life. And so Oswald explained that the local people of Norway are taught to consider work as a curse and punishment for sin. And that life is a state of wretchedness. To them, life is a state of wretchedness, sadness, unhappiness. No one believed that in Paris. In Paris, he tells her that in Paris, no one believes in that. Where in Paris, where the mere fact of being alive is thought to be a matter for exultant or joyful happiness. Life to them is a source of happiness. There is light there and sunshine, no mist, no lies, no deceits, and a holiday feeling. Happy time. Oswald says he must leave home. If not, all these feelings that are so strong in him, those feelings of course, of imprudence, according to Mrs. Alving's opinion or point of view, all these strong feelings in him would degenerate into something ugly. He means that he might commit something ugly as a result if he doesn't leave. It's a kind of warning. Miss Alving regards him steadily for a moment. She can't believe what she had just heard. Now, for the first time, she murmurs to him, I see clearly it all happened, and now I can speak. She's about to tell Oswald that Regina and himself are brother and sister. Okay? She was about to tell both of them the truth, the fact that they are brother and sister. But at that moment, Manders suddenly enters. Okay? He is so cheerful from having spent as he says, an edifying time. Edifying means enlightening time at the prayer meeting in the orphanage. He said he has decided that Engstrand needs help with the sailor's home, and Regina must go back with him to live with him once more. Oswald states that Regina is going away with me. No, she will go with me. And at this moment, Manders turns to Mrs. Alving in bewilderment. He's so bewildered. That will not happen either. Miss Alving says, that will not happen either. And despite the pastor's pleading, the pastor asks her so earnestly, okay, despite his pleading, she's about to speak openly. He insists that she mustn't tell them the truth, but she insists to speak openly, to tell the truth frankly. At this moment, they hear shouting outside, and through the conservatory windows they see a red glare, a huge fire. The orphanage is ablaze, is set on fire. Manders cries, "Mrs. Alving, that fire is a judgment on this house of sin." He means that it is the judgment of God. Okay? That coat, that house of sin. House of sin. As they all rush out to the orphanage, Mr. Manders is left wringing his hands, twisting and squeezing his hands as he is so happy, so thrilled that the orphanage has been set on fire. And he says, "And no entrance." So the orphanage is gone, and there is no entrance. And he then followed them outside. Now we come to a kind of a critical commentary on that act, Act 2. This act brings out more details and enlarges the action. Not only the action, increases the action, the characterizations and motives to you, to the reader, which these actions, these characterizations and motives were introduced in the first act, of course, but here we have a kind of an increase, okay, in these characterizations, actions, and motives. Moreover, the acceleration of events taking place in this scene, their effects heightened by the rich symbolism in Mrs. Alving's ghost's speech, you remember? Okay? This acceleration of events leads the audience, you, to await the final nemesis, the final judgment that will occur in Act 3. More specifically, to be more specific, the purpose of this second act is to focus attention on Oswald and complete the characterizations of the secondary characters, like Regina and Engstrand, for example. By so doing, Ibsen can fully disclose, fully reveal the consequences when individuals live by old beliefs and traditional dogmatic beliefs, and then assess the guilt for this crime. Exposing the history of their previous relationship, when they expose the history of their previous relationship, the conversation between Mrs. Alving and Pastor Manders provides the audience with a complete portrait of the clergyman. It's a kind of an exposition of that clergyman, a revelation from within, going deep into that man, that clergyman, the pastor, Mr. Manders. First showing Manders' hypocrisy through this close reading, close scrutiny of Manders himself, we find that he is so hypocrite, showing his hypocrisy and self-centeredness. Not only he is a hypocrite, no, he is so self-centered, so selfish. And thus, Ibsen sums to you that he is a big boy, as Miss Alving just described him, okay? By allowing Engstrand to recite the humbug story, the nonsense story of his virtuous life. This is not true. By allowing Engstrand to recite that untruthful story of his virtuous life, Ibsen fully depicts the moral irresponsibility. Ibsen reveals to you the moral irresponsibility of the carpenter. With these two characters completely developed, completely revealed to the audience, Engstrand and Mr. Manders. In this way, Ibsen may now investigate. Ibsen is now preparing for the investigation of the problem of Mrs. Alving okay, and dwell on the fruits of her cowardice. He will dwell upon something more important, the fruits of her cowardice, the results of her being a coward in the past. And by this I mean Regina. These fruits are Regina and Oswald. Having in common their joy of life, they have a common belief in the joy of life, inherited through their father, of course. Regina and Oswald show their youthful innocence. Regina and Oswald show their youthful innocence by being unaware of their near incest relationship. They are so close to incest. When Mrs. Alving discovered that Oswald, like his father, feels that this exuberance of life, this enthusiasm or liveliness of life, will destroy the piety of the home, okay, the sacredness of the home, she's so afraid. She suddenly understands why her husband became a dissipated drunkard, a degenerate and immoral drunkard. And so, to prevent further deceit in this house, of course, this kind of deceit is committed by herself. Okay, the deceit of the past, the lies she kept all these long years. Okay, she prepares Oswald and Regina to discover the truth of their origins and the nature of their heritage. They are about to know from her the truth. As she begins to say that the words that will demolish these old lies, these deceits of her past life, she was about to. Okay? They discover that the orphanage is set on fire. And here Ibsen brings two objective correlative. Okay? Objective correlatives. The orphanage on the hand and the truth about the father on the other. The orphanage is a symbol of the lies, of the deceits that the mother tries to cover throughout these long years. Okay? It's a symbol of the father's sins on the past. Okay? The orphanage, which is a symbol of hypocrisy and deceit, the institution that is supposed to serve the society, okay, this orphanage is destroyed the moment the truth was about to be uncovered. And this is very symbolic, as I have just explained to you. Thank you, and see you in Act 3.